What's up guys, Ben here bringing you another video today. Let's talk about Hardpoint. So on the final couple of days of the beta, we were given access to Hardpoint on 4 maps: Museum, Hotel, Mercado, and Farm. I wanted to make a video and talk a little bit about how I kind of felt the gameplay was, talk a little about what I think sort of some of the meta might be in Hardpoint, and then have a conversation about the sort of hill count and what I think the thought process from Infinity Ward is there and kind of where we go from what we saw at the beta. So let's dive in. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the gameplay first. I felt like it was pretty fast as far as sort of other hardpoints go, especially running a sub on some of the smaller maps like Farm and Mercado seemed like the way. And even on a lot of hills on, say, a map like Hotel or even on Museum, I felt like if you had an MP5 in your hand, you were at a pretty good advantage in terms of the mobility. I can definitely see if we get this same meta, at least on launch, it's going to be a little bit more 3 sub on some of these hills. Again, assuming that we get maps like Farm and Mercado in the map pool, but we haven't seen the full set yet. It does feel like it's a little bit more sub heavy than last year, where I felt like on launch it was definitely more 2-2 or even 3-1 AR, 1 sub split. So I think that will promote some faster gameplay. I always love watching more sub gameplay. It's a lot more exciting. I will say, obviously, that will come at the disadvantage of, you know, especially in this game, I feel like you die so quick. And I know, yes, DTK is like kind of average compared to COD. If we compare to Cold War and Vanguard, it's a little bit faster than that. It's going to be hard to own pre-aims and people are just going to kind of bunny hop around the corner and melt you with an MP5. So I think we're going to see a lot more mobility at play this year, at least on the start. Again, all assuming with the same meta as the beta. Some of you may ask me, well, what about trophy spam and sort of nade issues and all that? Obviously, y'all probably seen clips from the beta. Stuns and flashes are pretty good in this game. I think nades are as well. We do have trophies though. So I think the big question is how many trophies are going to be allowed? What's a good balance? Are trophies buggy? Do they work? I think all that stuff will get more kind of felt out once the game actually releases, but we have those tools available to tweak. So I'm not super worried. It might take a week or two to kind of feel out what the right balance is, at least in terms of the competitive rule set and kind of how things will go in the CDL. But the basis is here for a good Hardpoint game. Map wise, we did have Hardpoint on 4 maps in the beta. We had it on Farm, Mercado, Hotel, and Museum. Let me talk about each kind of individually. As we watch some gameplay here on Farm, I really liked it. We'll talk about the number of hills just in general in a second, but this is some good variety in terms of how this kind of Hardpoint plays. The map is not super small. You can get from one side to another. And I think the thing that I noticed the most about this map is I feel like you can really control, at least in 4v4, sort of how the map plays, because you get such these deep diagonal spawns, especially on like hills 2 and 3. So I think for fans of sort of Cold War and sort of structure Hardpoint, at least what I notice sometimes with default spawns, it's super manipulative. Again, when I was playing 6v6, we'll have to see sort of how spawns work in the default. Sometimes you did get sort of weird squad spawns, especially when you rotate, people kind of spawn on you, but I didn't get a chance to really play it enough and really like in controlled scenarios to know if some of the squad spawns are a little bit too high on priority compared to sort of default spawns on the map. And obviously there's rumors about map editors, so we can see if we can make some tweaks there. But overall, I felt like Farm 18 kind of plays pretty good. I think maybe the only kind of hard points I thought were kind of a little bit mixed. Downstairs Hardpoint, which I believe is Hardpoint number 7 out of 8. I feel like that Hardpoint was kind of lackluster. Hardpoint 1's a little bit mixy. It very much is sort of a kill house type vibe. And we haven't had that in a while in a game, so I'm curious sort of how the pros are going to feel. But like, I really like the layouts of like Hardpoint 2, Hardpoint 3, sort of the 5th Hardpoint, which is that sort of upstairs area above the kitchen. Like, there's some good variety in how you can set up around these hardpoints. It feels like a pretty interesting sort of kind of 3-lane map if you think about it, with a really sort of cool middle section. So I like the potential of this map from a Hardpoint perspective. But if we're going down this route, we got to talk about the number of the hills in the beta. So I remember sort of in Modern Warfare 2019, there was a lot of chatter when pros went to go test the game about the number of hardpoints, and there was a lot of back and forth on social media. And eventually they kind of got it to a middle ground. I feel like there's sort of a mix of sort of maybe 2 things happening here. And this is maybe not the best map to show it. When I get to Mercado, kind of understand what I'm thinking about. I think one, from the developer standpoint, they really like want to try and add more variety and more hills to these maps and sort of use as many of those sort of massive POIs as hills, which I totally understand. The second thing is I think they're using the beta to really feel out if some of these hardpoint locations really work. You'll notice again, when we get to Mercado, you'll see that there's some hardpoints that are sort of on top of each other. And I think some of that's a little bit of A/B testing. But if you take a look at like Farm 18, to my point, like I feel like if we're going to play this map competitively, like Hardpoint number 7 is a complete dud to me. It's downstairs. It's kind of in a weird spot. There's just sort of choke points to get down there. I feel like that hill is just not going to play as well, but you have some good hills on here. Like I like, again, hill number 2, a little bit funky and a deep spawn, but you can really hold that well, but still kind of be able to finesse around the hill and maybe stay alive. And then you can kind of decide, look, I think the way this is sort of built, if you almost look at this, and I know this wasn't, I don't know if this is intentionally color coded. I pulled this image from CDL Intel. I think CDL Intel pulled it from like the Call of Duty website. But again, you can kind of see they sort of A/B test like certain locations on the map to see like between 2 hills, which are good, right? Or 1 and 6 good, or 2 and 4 better locations, 3 and 5. Like I think you have the potential for 4 or 5 really good hills on this map. But yeah, I think my overall thoughts on Farm 18 is it can play pretty good. I would expect, unless there's some shenanigans or there's some better maps, like I feel like this one probably could make it in the competitive rotation to start the season. I think the best example of sort of A/B testing potentially going on here is Mercado. This is an interesting hardpoint map. This map is tiny. So really hitting like long routes and deep rotations, kind of break hills, like is gonna be really doable again if this map makes it in. I'm just curious though if maybe this map is like almost too small. I know it's kind of weird to say, but it is really quick to get from one side of the map to the other. Kind of my thoughts on how it played though is I really did enjoy playing hardpoint on this map, although I did feel like some of these hills were either too mixy or kind of hard to break. Example is like the first hill on the map is sort of in that middle sort of market lane. It's a really weird start. I think like this hill is sort of an interesting sort of break hill, but I don't know if it's going to work in practice, right? So both teams kind of spawn where you see 2 and 6, 3 and 5 are, but you really need to get sort of the outer parts of one, sort of the extreme left and extreme right, so you can watch people crossing and quite diving the hill. Otherwise it's just sort of a flood fest. So I wonder if maybe like number 7, and I don't know, like again, if timing on how people get to the hill makes this work, if number 7's a little bit of a better like starting hard point because it's a little bit more controllable. One is it's sort of like a lot of chaos, but we've had that before in maps, right? Like I remember like the first hard point on Solar, for example, in AW is like a mixed fest, but we'll see if people are able to like kind of be able to push it out and control spawns. But I personally think it's going to be just sort of mixy for a while. But you see kind of the thought process, I think, a little bit from the developers. Again, we go back to this A/B testing thing. 2 and 6 are the same building, but one is downstairs and one is upstairs. So I wonder if A, both hills might make it in the game on the start, or B, they're testing out, see which hill is a little bit more better for gameplay. I think in general, you probably have about like 4 or 5 really good hills on this one. I don't think I would roll it with all 7 because especially 2 and 6 to me are pretty redundant. I wasn't a big fan of the 4th hard point. Like when I played this map a bunch, a lot of people really weren't breaking this hill because essentially anyone that got that side of the spawn basically just held all middle. And the only way to really break it is to go like all the way around and maybe cut through sort of that head glitch. If y'all kind of played this map through like where gate is, to see this little like rectangle square by that like iron gate. I just think this hill is really hard to break, number 4. So I'm not a fan. I really liked how 7 played. 3 and 5 are pretty good. There's a lot of fun ways you can kind of break both those hills. And 2 and 6, again, not too bad, but there's a lot of ways you can kind of hold and lock down that lane because it's sort of windows and head glitches. You can probably like push it out too and really control sort of the middle. And then like say if someone pushes out towards the middle of the map and dies, well, the person in the hill could just rotate to a window, pretty much hold a head glitch. So we'll see kind of what hills make it in. But again, this is another hardpoint map that I kind of really enjoyed playing. So curious to see what happens if it makes it in. Again, it might be a little bit too small. All right, we got 2 more hardpoint maps left. We're talking a little bit about Hotel here. This is sort of my favorite sort of Dom map. So excited to give it a spin on hardpoint. I have a feeling Hotel might be really good in both hardpoint and S&D this year. And again, if we get CTF, I'm actually really curious to see how this map usually plays in that game mode. This one's got 6 hills, and I think maybe the only real sort of dud hills are 6 and 3, which kind of sucks because you're probably gonna need one of them. I would say of them, I think 3 is a little bit better than 6. 6 just plays weird. I guess maybe people need more playtime on figure out how to break that one from the back, but it's just a really funky hill, and just like kind of like once you break it, you gotta kind of hop up there. It's just a little bit awkward, whereas 3 is kind of cool because you can sort of like finesse around all the counters in that kitchen, and even hitting the back, there's some variety there beyond just sort of flooding the front. But overall, like I really like how this map plays. 4 and 2 are really fun hard points. It's just a really well thought out map. Again, like classic sort of 3-lane map, but there's some interesting variety and mix up, and all the different lanes kind of play differently. So I really like this one for hard point. Again, I think this one will probably be at least definitely a tester at the start. I get to see them removing potentially one of the hard points, but I could see you running with 6. If they can figure out how to make hard point number 6 you see here on the plat a little bit easier to hop on, I think you can maybe run it with 6, but we'll see. And last but not least, we've got Museum. And I think of the 4 hard points that were available, this map's probably the one that I'm a little bit on the fence on whether or not it's going to make it into the rotation or not. Museum's just a really big map. And I think my concern with Museum is like, in the same way we had the issue with Miami, there's so many parts of the map that are just like kind of useless. It's just a really, really big map. And I don't know sort of in 4v4 if it's not going to play like super slow and kind of really unfun to sort of play and watch. This one has the least amount of hard points. And honestly, all of the hard points make kind of a lot of sense if you think about it. I think my criticism of this map is it's just really hard to rotate to some of these hills. It's really deep runs. And again, like you look at sort of the outer lane on the left side of this image, it's really big. And so you can easily just get like kind of funneled if teams stay ahead on rotations, they hold hill and everybody rotates. And one sort of an awkward hill, it's just really hard to hold that like downstairs area. There's not like a lot of ways that you can just not get LOS. And even then, like even if you tuck yourself close to the rocks underneath sort of the sort of bridge, the Skyway Bridge, where number 1 is, like you can just kind of get jumped down and shot. So it's just kind of a hard hill to hold. I think it's gonna be kind of mixy. Again, if I had to pick one of the 4 and probably to sort of maybe see if we've got other maps, this one is it. And going back to the sub thing, like I think, bro, even on this map, an MP5 kind of melts. You might think to yourself, well, I think the AR is pretty good. And yeah, I agree with you. Like, especially in a lot of headies here, the AR is good, but like you put an MP5 and say the hands of a Beezy, like Tyler Beezy is going to be able to win some crazy gunfights on this map, purely out of his accuracy and recoil control. So interesting map. Again, I don't know if this one is good enough to really make it into rotation. Let's table it for now and see what else we get in the set. But if I had to pick one to not make it, I think it's this one. All right, so like I think my final thoughts on Hardpoint, it was pretty enjoyable to play in the beta. Incomplete on the spawns. They felt decently solid, but got to see how it plays in the retail, especially with sort of 4v4 and all of the sort of official rule set on that front, and see if there's a little bit too much sort of squad spawns that we've seen in past games. And actually, surprisingly, the beta maps, like I think 3 of them solidly work for Hardpoint, but I'm sort of, you know, player, want to see when you actually get 4 pros on the map, they know how to set up, really rotate if some of these maps are kind of too difficult to break or don't really have the flow, and we'll need to see what else is resting in the pool. So I think we'll get more answers on that towards the end of October once the game comes out. Let me know in the comments what you all think about the Hardpoint gameplay. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you disagree with my sort of opinions on some of these maps? Let me know in the comments and I'll respond to a few of y'all and give you my thoughts. As always, if you like that comment, smash the like button. Follow for more. We're going to be doing some more breakdowns on sort of a post-mortem coming out of the beta the next week or so, so stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, we'll see you in the next one.